Abigail sat frozen in seat 12A, her small hands trembling as passengers stared. The flight attendant's voice cut through the cabin like a whip. This child does not belong in first class. What happened in the next 45 minutes would destroy a career, expose a corporation, and change aviation forever. Before we dive into this incredible story, drop a comment below and let us know where you're watching from. If you believe children deserve to be treated with dignity regardless of their skin color, hit that like button right now. And make sure to subscribe because stories like this need to be heard. Trust me, you won't believe what happens when this flight attendant discovers who these little girls' father really is. Now, let's get into it. The morning started like a dream for 8-year-old triplets Abigail, Ada, and Adelaide. They arrived at Dallas-Fort Worth International Airport at 6:30 a.m., their matching purple backpacks bouncing with each excited step. The girls were heading to Atlanta for their grandmother's funeral, a somber occasion made slightly easier by the adventure of flying alone for the very first time. Their father Aaron had taken an earlier flight for emergency business meetings, but he'd made sure everything was arranged perfectly for his daughters. Unaccompanied minor services. First-class seats. Everything they needed to feel safe and special during a difficult journey. Gate agent Aileen checked them in with genuine warmth, her smile reaching her eyes as she fastened special lanyards around each girl's neck. "You three are going to do just great," she told them, adjusting Adelaide's backpack strap. "The flight attendants will take excellent care of you." The girls giggled nervously, holding hands as they walked down the jetway. This was the kind of memory their father wanted them to have. Something positive during such a sad time. Something that showed them the world could be kind. The aircraft gleamed in the early morning light as they stepped aboard. Other passengers smiled at the adorable triplets, their identical faces and coordinated outfits drawing warm chuckles and friendly waves. The girls found their seats easily. 12A, 12B, 12C. Right up front in first class, where their father had carefully selected spots by the window so they could watch the clouds together. They settled in with the careful reverence of children in a new, fancy place, smoothing their dresses and arranging their backpacks under the seats in front of them. Everything felt magical. Everything felt safe. Then flight attendant Adriana Stone appeared from the galley, her eyes scanning the cabin with practiced efficiency. Her gaze landed on the three little black girls in first class, and something shifted in her expression. The professional smile faltered. Her eyes narrowed almost imperceptibly. She approached their row with steps that seemed deliberately slow, her heels clicking against the aircraft floor like a countdown. When she spoke, her voice carried a coldness that made Abigail's stomach clench. "Are you girls sure you're in the right section?" Abigail, the boldest of the three, held up their boarding passes with a proud smile. "Yes, ma'am. Our daddy got us these seats." But Adriana took the passes and examined them with excruciating slowness, turning them over, holding them up to the light, checking them against her tablet again and again. The scrutiny felt deliberate. Performative. "These must be a mistake," Adriana finally said, her voice dripping with false concern. "Children like you don't fly first class." The words hung in the air like poison. Ada's eyes went wide. Adelaide's hand found Abigail's and squeezed tight. "Our daddy bought these tickets," Ada said quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. Adriana's smile didn't reach her eyes as she looked down at the 8-year-old. "I'm sure he did, sweetie." She walked away then, but not far. Just to the galley where she whispered urgently to another flight attendant, both of them glancing back at the girls repeatedly. Abigail felt the weight of stares from other passengers now. People who had smiled at them moments ago now looked confused, suspicious, uncertain. The girls hadn't moved. Hadn't done anything. But suddenly the air felt different. Hostile. Adelaide's voice trembled as she leaned close to her sisters. "Did we do something wrong?" Adriana returned with the senior flight attendant, a tall woman with her hair pulled back so tightly it seemed to stretch her face. But it was Adriana who spoke, and she made sure her voice carried through the cabin. "We need to verify how you obtained these tickets." The words seemed chosen carefully, each one designed to imply wrongdoing. To suggest theft. To make sure everyone understood that these three little black girls were somehow suspicious. Abigail felt her cheeks burn as dozens of eyes turned toward them. "I already told you," she said, trying to keep her voice steady like her father always taught her. "Our daddy is Aaron Mitchell. He bought them for us." Adriana actually laughed. Not a polite chuckle but a sharp, dismissive sound that cut through Abigail's attempt at dignity. "Sure he is, honey. And I'm the Queen of England." The senior flight attendant shifted uncomfortably but said nothing. Didn't intervene. Didn't stop what was happening. Adriana pressed on, emboldened by the silence. "Do you girls have identification? Proof of who you are?" 3 8-year-olds traveling to their grandmother's funeral. Of course they didn't have driver's licenses or passports. They had their boarding passes. They had their special unaccompanied minor lanyards. They had done everything right. "We don't have IDs," Abigail admitted, and she hated how small her voice sounded. "But our names are on the tickets. And the gate lady checked us in. She said everything was fine." Adriana exchanged a meaningful look with the senior flight attendant. The gate lady might have made a mistake. These tickets are very expensive. Over $600 each. That's a lot of money. The implication was clear. Where would your family get that kind of money? How could people like you afford to be here? Ada started crying quietly, tears rolling down her cheeks as she tried to hide her face. Adelaide wrapped an arm around her sister, but her own hands were shaking. Other passengers began murmuring among themselves. Some looked sympathetic. Others looked suspicious. One woman in seat 14B, a black woman named Amy, stood up abruptly. "This is absolutely unacceptable. These children have done nothing wrong." Her voice cut through the mounting tension like a lifeline. "They have valid boarding passes. They're in their assigned seats. What exactly is the problem here?" Adriana turned to her with barely concealed irritation. "Ma'am, this is a security matter. I'm going to have to ask you to sit down." But Amy didn't sit down. Instead, she pulled out her phone and started recording. "I want to document what's happening here. 3 little girls being harassed for no reason except the color of their skin." Adriana's face flushed red. "You cannot film on this aircraft. Put that phone away immediately or you'll be removed as well." The threat hung in the air. Amy kept filming. "So now you're threatening me too? For documenting your discrimination?" 3 other passengers voiced their agreement. A man in a business suit. An elderly couple across the aisle. People who could see what was really happening here. What this really was. The commotion drew pilot Aiden from the cockpit. He emerged looking concerned, his uniform crisp and his expression professional. "What's going on back here?" "We're trying to prepare for takeoff." Adriana immediately shifted her tone, becoming deferential and concerned. "Sir, we have a situation with these children. They're in first-class seats, but we're having trouble verifying their tickets are legitimate." Aiden frowned and reached for the boarding passes that Abigail still clutched in her small hands. He scanned them quickly, efficiently. "These are valid first-class tickets. Purchased and confirmed." "What's the issue?" Adriana's jaw tightened. "Sir, with all due respect, we need to verify they weren't obtained fraudulently. We have protocols for suspicious situations." That word again. Suspicious. Aiden's eyes moved from the tickets to the 3 little girls, their faces streaked with tears, their hands clutching each other. Then he looked at Adriana with an expression that suggested he understood exactly what kind of situation this really was. "On what basis are you calling this suspicious?" Adriana lowered her voice, but the cabin was quiet now. Everyone listening. Everyone watching. Look at them, sir. Do they look like they belong in first class? Their clothes are nice enough, but that doesn't mean anything these days. I've seen this before. People gaming the system. Using stolen credit cards. We have to be vigilant. The racist subtext had become simply text. No more hiding behind professionalism or protocol. Just raw, ugly prejudice spoken aloud for everyone to hear. Aiden's face hardened into something carved from stone. Stand down. Right now. These children are staying in their seats. But Adriana refused. This is my cabin, Captain. Passenger safety and security is my responsibility. I'm following proper protocol, and I'm calling ground security to handle this situation. She reached for her radio, fingers already pressing buttons. Her voice came through with artificial urgency. This is Flight Attendant Stone on Flight 2847. I need assistance removing unauthorized passengers from first class. Abigail felt her whole world collapsing. They were really going to throw them off the plane. In front of everyone. Like criminals. Like they'd done something terrible. When all they'd done was exist. All they'd done was be black children in a space where someone had decided they didn't belong. 2 security officers boarded the aircraft, their uniforms and serious expressions making everything feel even more real, even more terrifying. The lead officer, a man named Albert, walked up the aisle with measured steps. The 3 girls were standing now, pulled from their seats, their purple backpacks clutched to their chests like shields. They looked so small standing there. So vulnerable. So absolutely terrified. Adriana pointed at them as if they were evidence of a crime. These children need to be escorted off the aircraft pending verification of their tickets. Abigail's voice came out as a whisper, but in the silent cabin, everyone heard it. Please. We just want to go to Grandma's funeral. 8 years old and begging not to be treated like a criminal. 8 years old and learning that sometimes the world sees your skin before it sees your humanity. 8 years old and having that lesson delivered in the cruelest possible way. Amy's voice rose above the tension, strong and unwavering. This is wrong. This is so deeply wrong, and all of you know it. She held her phone higher, making sure the camera captured everything. The 3 little girls with their tear-stained faces. The flight attendant with her arms crossed in righteous indignation. The security officers who'd been called to remove children from a plane for the crime of being black in first class. I'm streaming this live right now. Thousands of people are watching what's happening on this aircraft. Adriana's eyes went wide. Ma'am, I've told you repeatedly that filming is not allowed. You're interfering with crew member duties. Officer, I need her removed as well. She gestured at Amy as if calling for backup, as if this woman documenting injustice was somehow the real problem here. But Albert, the security officer, looked uncomfortable. He'd reviewed the boarding passes. He'd seen that they were legitimate. He was starting to understand that he'd been called here not because of any real security threat, but because a flight attendant couldn't accept that 3 black children belonged in first class. More passengers began standing up. A businessman in row 15. A young couple near the back. An older woman with kind eyes who reminded Abigail of her grandmother. They all started speaking at once, their voices overlapping but their message unified. This is discrimination. This is wrong. Let these children sit down. One man pointed at Adriana with barely restrained anger. You're humiliating these little girls because of your own prejudice. We all see it. Stop hiding behind protocol and just admit what this really is. Adriana's face had gone from red to pale, but she doubled down. I am a 12-year veteran of this airline. I know protocol. I know when something doesn't add up. She turned to Pilot Aiden, her voice taking on a pleading quality. Sir, I've seen situations like this before. Families using stolen information to book expensive tickets. It's my job to protect the airline and our passengers. Aiden's response was ice cold. What you're doing right now is profiling 3 children. That's not protocol. That's racism. The word hung in the air. Racism. Said out loud by the captain. No more dancing around it. No more polite euphemisms. Adriana's mouth opened and closed, but no words came out. I'm not racist, she finally sputtered. I'm just doing my job. If they were white children in the same situation, I'd do the exact same thing. Amy's voice cut through from where she still stood filming. Would you though? Would you really demand identification from white 8-year-olds? Would you call them suspicious? Would you accuse them of fraud? Pilot Aiden made a decision. Everyone sit down. We're not taking off until this is resolved properly. He turned to Albert. These children have valid tickets. There is no security threat here. There is no fraud. They stay in their seats. Albert nodded slowly, relief visible on his face that someone in authority was finally making the right call. But Adriana wasn't done. She couldn't seem to stop herself, couldn't seem to see that she was destroying herself with every word. Captain, I must protest. This sets a dangerous precedent. If we don't verify suspicious ticketing, it encourages more fraud. What makes it suspicious? Aiden demanded. Tell me specifically. What about these 3 well-dressed, well-behaved children with valid boarding passes and unaccompanied minor credentials makes them suspicious? The question hung there. Everyone waited for Adriana's answer. She looked around the cabin, seeming to realize for the first time that she'd lost the room. That every passenger was looking at her with disgust or disappointment or anger. That her colleagues were backing away from her. That she'd said too much, revealed too much of what really drove her actions. Their tickets cost over $600 each, she said weakly. That's $1,800 for 3 children. Most families can't afford that. Amy's laugh was bitter. So poor families can't fly first class. That's your argument? Or are you saying black families specifically can't afford it? Adriana's silence was answer enough. Abigail watched all of this happening around her, feeling disconnected from her own body. Part of her couldn't believe this was real. That a grown woman was really standing here, in front of dozens of witnesses, arguing that 3 little girls didn't belong somewhere because of the color of their skin. The phone in Adelaide's pocket buzzed. Then again. And again. Their father calling, probably wondering why they hadn't texted that they'd boarded safely like they'd promised. But Adriana had told them no phone calls. Had said they couldn't contact anyone until this was sorted out. Now Adelaide pulled out the phone with shaking hands. It's our daddy. Can we please call him? Please. Adriana moved to take the phone. No calls until we verify your story. But Aiden stepped between them. These children are calling their father. Right now. Abigail took the phone from Adelaide's trembling hands. She pressed the callback button with fingers that didn't quite feel like her own. It rang once. Twice. Then her father's voice, tight with worry. Baby girl, what's wrong? Why didn't you call when you boarded? And Abigail, who'd been trying so hard to be brave, who'd been trying to hold it together for her sisters, finally broke. Daddy, she sobbed into the phone. The lady says we stole our tickets. She's trying to make us leave the plane. Everyone's staring at us. Daddy, I'm scared. The silence on the other end lasted only a heartbeat. Then Aaron Mitchell's voice came through, no longer worried but absolutely controlled. Dangerously calm. Put me on speaker, Abigail. Right now. She did, her hands shaking so badly that Ada had to help her hold the phone. Aaron's voice filled the first-class cabin. This is Aaron Mitchell. My daughters are on your aircraft. Someone explain to me immediately why they're crying. Why they're scared. Why they think they're being accused of theft. Adriana's face had gone completely white. She reached for the phone. Sir, this is Flight Attendant Stone. There's been a misunderstanding. We're just verifying ticket information per standard protocol. Aaron's voice could have cut glass. Standard protocol. You accused my 8-year-old daughters of stealing. You made them cry. You called security on children going to their grandmother's funeral. Each sentence landed like a hammer blow. Now I'm going to ask you one question, Ms. Stone, and I want you to think very carefully before you answer. Would you have done this if my daughters were white? While chaos unfolded on Flight 2847 in Dallas, Aaron Mitchell had landed in Atlanta 45 minutes earlier. He'd texted the girls as soon as his plane touched down, expecting their usual flood of exclamation points and emoji. They always texted when they landed. Always. It was their thing. But this time, nothing. He'd waited 5 minutes, telling himself they were probably just distracted or busy boarding. Then 10 minutes. Then he'd called. Straight to voicemail, which made sense if they were already on the plane with their devices in airplane mode. But something felt wrong. That father instinct that every parent knows, the one that whispers warnings in the quiet spaces of your mind. He'd checked his phone more carefully while walking through the Atlanta airport. 7 missed calls from the girl's shared number. 7. His heart had lurched into his throat as he pulled up his voicemail. The first message was Ada's voice, small and uncertain. Daddy, the lady says we can't sit in our seats. She says something's wrong with our tickets. Can you call us back? The timestamp showed she'd called 20 minutes ago. The second message, 8 minutes later. Adelaide this time, her voice higher, more frightened. Daddy, please answer. They're saying we have to leave the plane. We didn't do anything wrong. Please call back. The third message had been Abigail, and the fear in her usually confident voice had made Aaron's blood run cold. Dad, we need you. The flight attendant called security. Everyone's staring at us. I don't know what to do. His hands had been shaking as he immediately dialed the airline's operations center, his feet already moving toward the ticket counter, his mind racing through possibilities. What could have gone wrong? The tickets were legitimate. He'd booked them himself from his company account. The girls had their unaccompanied minor paperwork. Everything had been arranged perfectly. The operations center had answered on the second ring. Skywing Airlines operations, how can I help you? Aaron's voice had been tight, controlled. This is Aaron Mitchell. My daughters are on Flight 2847 from Dallas to Atlanta. I need to know what's happening on that aircraft right now. There was typing. A pause. Sir, let me pull up that flight. I'm showing a departure delay due to a passenger issue, but I don't have specific details. Is there a problem with your daughter's reservations? Aaron's patience had snapped. There's a problem with my daughters being terrified. They've left me 3 voicemails saying security was called, that someone's trying to remove them from the plane. I need answers now. More typing. Longer pause. Sir, I'm not showing any alerts on their passenger records. Let me contact the gate supervisor. Aaron had wanted to scream. I don't have time for this. Get me someone who knows what's happening to my children. Now. That's when he'd made the call that changed everything. His voice had dropped to something cold and absolutely authoritative. This is Aaron Mitchell. I'm the CEO of Skywing Airlines. My 3 8-year-old daughters are being harassed on one of my aircraft. Get me the gate supervisor, the flight crew supervisor, and security footage from that gate immediately. And someone get me on the phone with that plane right now. The operations center had gone silent. Then frantic. Mr. Mitchell. Sir. I had no idea. Let me escalate this immediately. Aaron had already been pulling up the employee database on his phone, his other hand flagging down a gate agent at the Atlanta airport. He'd seen the flight attendant roster for Flight 2847. Lead flight attendant, Adriana Stone. 12 years with the company. He'd clicked into her employee file, and what he'd seen there had made his jaw clench so tight his teeth hurt. Multiple complaints. 3 formal grievances, all involving passengers of color. 2 years ago, a complaint that she'd refused to serve a black man in first class, claiming he was being disruptive when other passengers confirmed he'd been quiet. Last year, making a black family prove their tickets 3 times before allowing them to sit down. 6 months ago, calling security on a black businessman because she thought his laptop case looked suspicious. Every single complaint had been marked as resolved through additional training. No real consequences. No accountability. Just sweep it under the rug and hope it goes away. His daughters had been handed to a woman with a documented history of racism. His daughters were being terrorized right now because the airline he ran, the company he'd built, had protected a bigot instead of protecting its passengers. Aaron had felt rage bubble up inside him like lava, hot and consuming. He'd called his lawyer Alexander next. I need you at DFW Airport immediately. My daughters are on Flight 2847. There's a situation. Alexander, who'd known Aaron for 20 years, who'd heard every tone his voice could take, had simply said, I'm leaving now. Then Aaron had done something he'd never done before. He'd used his CEO access to pull up the live flight status, the cockpit communications, the passenger manifest. He could see everything from his phone. See that the flight was now 40 minutes delayed. See that there were security officers on board. See that multiple passengers had connected to the aircraft Wi-Fi, suggesting people were probably texting or calling about whatever was happening. His phone had buzzed with an alert. His PR team. Sir, we're seeing social media mentions of Skywing spike dramatically in the last 15 minutes. There appears to be a situation on one of our flights being live-streamed. Aaron's heart had stopped. Live-streamed. The world was watching his daughters be humiliated. He'd clicked the link his PR team sent, and there it was. A Facebook live stream with 50,000 viewers and climbing. He'd seen his daughters through a stranger's phone camera. Saw them standing in the aisle with their backpacks, looking small and terrified. Saw a flight attendant he now knew was Adriana Stone pointing at them while talking to security officers. Saw Abigail's face, streaked with tears, trying so hard to be brave. The comments on the live stream had been flooding in. Thousands of people outraged. Calling for boycotts. Demanding answers. Tagging the airline. Using hashtags like Skywing Racism and Protect Black Children. His company's reputation was imploding in real time, but Aaron hadn't cared about that. Not even a little bit. All he'd cared about was that his babies were being hurt, and he hadn't been there to protect them. He'd booked the next flight back to Dallas. 30 minutes until boarding. It had felt like an eternity. His phone had rung. The gate supervisor from DFW, voice shaking. Mr. Mitchell, sir, I'm so sorry. I'm at the aircraft now. Your daughters are safe. The situation is being handled. Aaron's voice had been deadly quiet. Tell me exactly what happened. Every detail. Now. And as the gate supervisor had explained, as Aaron had heard about Adriana Stone's accusations and implications and outright discrimination, something had crystallized in his mind. This ended today. Not with apologies. Not with vouchers. Not with sweeping it under the rug. This ended with accountability. Now let me ask you something. If you were in Aaron's position, if these were your children being treated this way, how would you respond? Comment number 1 if you think immediate termination is justified, or comment your thoughts on how companies should handle racism in the workplace. And don't forget to hit that like button if this story is making you feel something real. Subscribe if you want to see more stories about people standing up against injustice. Because what Aaron does next is going to shock everyone on that plane. The question is, will it be enough? Back on the aircraft, Security Officer Albert stood holding the boarding passes, his expression troubled. He'd done this job for 8 years. He'd removed drunk passengers, handled medical emergencies, dealt with actual security threats. But this? 3 well-dressed little girls with valid tickets. His instincts told him something was very wrong here, and it had nothing to do with fraud. "Ma'am," he said to Adriana, his voice professional but firm. "These boarding passes are legitimate. They're properly issued, paid for, and assigned. I'm not seeing any basis for removal." Adriana's face flushed darker. "Officer, I appreciate your input, but I'm responsible for this cabin. I'm telling you that something doesn't add up here. How did they get these tickets? Who bought them? We need verification before we can allow them to remain in first class." Her voice had taken on a desperate edge now, as if she knew she was losing control of the situation but couldn't stop herself from pushing forward. Albert glanced at the girls, saw the terror in their eyes, the way they clung to each other. Made his decision. "The tickets are valid. Unless you have specific evidence of fraud or a security threat, my job here is done." But Adriana wouldn't let it go. Couldn't let it go. "I am the senior flight attendant on this aircraft," she said, her voice rising. "Passenger safety and security falls under my purview. I'm telling you officially that I believe something isn't right here. These tickets cost over $600 each. That's $1,800 total. For 3 children." She paused, and what she said next removed any remaining doubt about her motivations. Where would they get that kind of money? Where would their family get it? A passenger in row 14 spoke up, his voice sharp with anger. "Just say what you really mean. You don't think black families can afford first class? You think these children stole something or their parents committed fraud? Say it out loud so everyone can hear your racism clearly." Adriana spun toward him. "I never said anything about race. You're putting words in my mouth. This is about protocol and security, nothing else." But her voice wavered. Her eyes darted around the cabin, seeing the expressions on other passengers' faces. The disbelief. The disgust. The understanding of what was really happening here. Amy, still filming from her seat, spoke with cold precision. "You've had white passengers in first class this entire boarding process. Did you question any of them? Did you demand they prove how they afforded their tickets? Or is it just these 3 little black girls who need to justify their presence?" Adriana opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. No response came. Because there was no good answer. No way to explain why only these children had triggered her scrutiny without admitting the truth that everyone already knew. Another passenger jumped in, a white woman in her 60s with steel gray hair. "I've been flying for 40 years. I've never once seen a flight attendant question children like this. Never seen one demand proof of purchase. This is absolutely discrimination, and you should be ashamed of yourself." Her voice carried the weight of someone who'd seen enough injustice to recognize it immediately. "These babies are going to their grandmother's funeral, for heaven's sake. And you're treating them like criminals." Abigail found her voice again, steadier now with so many passengers defending them. "Our father is Aaron Mitchell. He works for this airline. He bought our tickets because he wanted us to be comfortable. We didn't steal anything. We didn't do anything wrong." Her 8-year-old voice carrying more dignity than the adult flight attendant who'd been tormenting her. Ada and Adelaide stood closer to their sister, their hands linked together, drawing strength from each other the way triplets do. Adriana made one final, fatal mistake. She looked directly at Abigail and spoke with condescension so thick it was almost tangible. "Sweetheart, I'm sure your father is a very nice man. I'm sure he works hard. But let's be realistic here. First-class tickets on this route are expensive. Your family might not understand that. Someone might have given you those tickets as a gift, or maybe there was a mistake in the booking system. I'm just trying to help sort this out. Every word dripped with the implication that these children and their family couldn't possibly belong in this space. Pilot Aiden had heard enough. Ms. Stone, I'm ordering you to stand down. These children are remaining in their seats. We're preparing for departure. Adriana turned to him with barely controlled fury. Captain, I must protest this decision. I'm filing a formal safety complaint about this flight. Aiden's eyes went cold. You do that. And I'll be filing a formal discrimination complaint about your conduct. Now return to the galley and prepare the cabin. But Adriana's pride wouldn't let her back down. Not in front of all these passengers. Not after she'd committed so fully to her position. I'm calling the airport police, she announced, reaching for her phone. If airline security won't handle this properly, maybe law enforcement will take it more seriously. The threat hung in the air. She was actually going to call the police on 3 8-year-old girls. Actually going to escalate this beyond the point of any return. That's when something shifted in the cabin. Passengers began standing up. Not to leave. To protest. A businessman pulled out his phone and started filming. The elderly couple refused to sit down when Adriana demanded it. More phones came out. More recordings started. The live stream that Amy had started now had over 100,000 viewers, and the comments section was exploding with outrage. People tagging news organizations. Tagging civil rights groups. Tagging the airline's official accounts. This wasn't going to quietly disappear. This was becoming a national incident in real time. Adriana seemed to realize it too, and panic flickered across her face. But she'd gone too far to back down now. Her finger hovered over the buttons on her phone, ready to call airport police, ready to make this even worse. That's when the gate phone in the galley rang. Sharp and urgent. Another flight attendant answered it, her face going pale as she listened. She covered the mouthpiece and called to Adriana. You need to take this. It's the operations center. They say it's urgent. Adriana snatched the phone with irritation. This is Flight Attendant Stone. Then her expression changed. Color drained from her face like water from a sink. Her hands started shaking. What? No, that can't be right. That's impossible. Her eyes slowly moved to the three girls, now back in their seats with Pilot Aiden standing protectively nearby. Their father is who? The question came out as barely a whisper. Whatever she was hearing on that phone was destroying her entire reality. Her whole understanding of the situation. Her certainty that she'd been right to question these children. The gate supervisor Aileen came rushing down the jetway at that moment, moving faster than her heels should have allowed. She burst into the first-class cabin breathing hard, her face flushed with exertion and horror. Her eyes found the triplets immediately, then moved to Adriana with an expression of absolute disbelief. What have you done? The question wasn't rhetorical. It was an accusation. A condemnation. Do you have any idea who these children are? Do you have any concept of what you've just done? Adriana's voice came out small and uncertain now. I was following protocol. I was doing my job. But even she seemed to hear how hollow the words sounded. How inadequate they were for what she'd put these girls through. Aileen took the phone from Adriana's shaking hand and spoke into it. Sir, I'm on the aircraft now. The children are safe. The situation is contained. A pause. Yes, sir. I understand. Right away, sir. She ended the call and looked at Adriana with something like pity. Their father is Aaron Mitchell. Our CEO. The words seemed to echo in the sudden silence. Our CEO. The man who owned this airline. The man who signed everyone's paychecks. The man who had the power to fire every single person involved in this disaster. And his 3 8-year-old daughters had just been terrorized by one of his own employees. Adriana grabbed at the seat back next to her for support. That's not possible. The CEO has daughters. I didn't know. How could I know? But everyone could see the truth. That even if she hadn't known who their father was, it shouldn't have mattered. These children should have been treated with dignity regardless. At Skywing Airlines corporate headquarters, located just 15 miles from the airport, the crisis management team had assembled in record time. 20 people crammed into the executive conference room, all of them staring at the same live stream playing on the wall-mounted screen. 175,000 viewers now. The number climbed as they watched. Comments flooded in faster than anyone could read them. Calls for boycotts. Threats of lawsuits. Passengers vowing never to fly Skywing again. The airline's carefully cultivated reputation crumbling in real time. The head of public relations paced frantically. We need a statement. We need it now. Every news outlet in the country is picking this up. But the head of legal shook his head. We can't make a statement until we know all the facts. Until we've completed an investigation. Someone else jumped in. Investigation? The facts are streaming live to the entire country. We're watching a flight attendant racially profile 3 children. What more do we need to investigate? That's when someone thought to check the passenger manifest more carefully. A junior PR associate, fresh out of college, who'd been frantically gathering information. Her voice cut through the argument. Oh my God. Oh my God, those girls. Their emergency contact is listed as Erin Mitchell. Someone snapped at her. So what? Mitchell is a common name. The young woman's hands shook as she pulled up the full record. Erin Mitchell. Same address as our CEO's home address. Same phone number. The room went completely silent. Those are the CEO's daughters. Chaos erupted. People shouting over each other. Phones ringing off the hook. Someone was already pulling up Adriana Stone's employee file, reading her history of complaints aloud to the horrified room. Others were trying to calculate the damage. Financial. Reputational. Legal. But all of it was secondary to the immediate reality. Their CEO's children had been terrorized by their own employee, and the entire world had watched it happen. Where's Mitchell now? Someone demanded. Someone get him on the phone. But Erin Mitchell wasn't answering calls from headquarters. He was standing at the gate in Atlanta, watching the live stream on his own phone while waiting to board the flight back to Dallas. Every muscle in his body was tense. Every instinct screamed at him to do something, fix this, protect his daughters. But they were 800 miles away, and all he could do was watch and wait and let the fury build inside him like a storm gathering strength. His phone buzzed with another call from the executive team. He ignored it. There would be time for them later. Right now, his only focus was his daughters. Back on the aircraft in Dallas, Aileen tried to restore some order. She approached the triplets gently, crouching down so she was at their eye level. Girls, I'm so deeply sorry this happened to you. Your father is on the phone with us. He wants to talk to you. She held out her phone, and Abigail took it with trembling hands. Put it on speaker so her sisters could hear. Daddy? Her voice broke on the word. Erin's voice came through, and despite everything, it was steady. Calm. The voice of a father who would not let his children see his rage, only his love. I'm here, baby girl. All 3 of you, I'm here. We didn't do anything wrong, Adelaide said, her voice small and hurt. We showed her our tickets. We told her you bought them. But she didn't believe us. Aaron's breath came sharp over the line. I know, sweetheart. I know. And that's on her, not on you. You did everything right. You were brave and strong, and I'm so proud of you. Ada spoke up next, her voice wobbling. Is she going to make us leave? Are we in trouble? The question gutted him. His 8-year-old daughter asking if she was in trouble for being discriminated against. No, baby. You're not in trouble. You're never going to be in trouble for this. The lady who said those things to you. She's the one who made a mistake. A very big mistake. Aaron paused, choosing his next words carefully. Is she still there? Can she hear me? Abigail looked up at Adriana, who stood frozen near the galley, her face ashen. Yes, Daddy. She's right here. Aaron's voice changed then. Became the voice of a CEO. Of a man with power and every intention of using it. Put me on the cabin speaker system. Aileen moved quickly to comply, connecting Aaron's call to the aircraft's PA system. His voice filled the entire first-class cabin, clear and commanding. Every passenger fell silent. Every crew member stopped moving. This is Aaron Mitchell. I'm the CEO of Skywing Airlines, and I'm also the father of the 3 little girls in seats 12A, B, and C. A pause. Let that sink in. Let everyone understand exactly what had happened here. My daughters are 8 years old. They're flying alone to their grandmother's funeral. I bought them first-class tickets because I wanted them to be comfortable during a difficult journey. Another pause. Longer this time. What has happened on this aircraft today is inexcusable. It's unconscionable. And it ends right now. His voice remained calm, but there was steel beneath every word. To the passengers who spoke up for my daughters, who refused to let this injustice stand, I thank you from the bottom of my heart. You showed them that there are good people in the world. People who do the right thing even when it's uncomfortable. Scattered applause broke out among the passengers. Amy wiped tears from her eyes, still holding her phone, still streaming everything. To my flight crew and gate staff who tried to intervene, thank you as well. Then Aaron's voice sharpened. But to the flight attendant responsible for this incident, I have something different to say. Adriana seemed to shrink where she stood. Ma'am, I've reviewed your employment file. This isn't your first complaint. This isn't even your second or third. You have a documented history of targeting passengers of color. Of making them prove they belong. Of treating them as suspicious for no reason other than the color of their skin. The cabin was so quiet now that the hum of the aircraft's electrical system seemed loud. I've seen your messages in the crew chat groups. I've seen what you really think about the passengers you're supposed to serve. Someone in corporate had clearly sent him everything. Every screenshot. Every complaint. Every piece of evidence that Adriana Stone had been allowed to continue harassing passengers for years. You made my 8-year-old daughters cry. You made them feel like criminals. You tried to have them removed from a plane for the crime of being black in first class. Adriana's voice came out as a desperate whisper, but the open phone line caught it. Mr. Mitchell, please. I didn't know they were your daughters. If I'd known. Aaron cut her off, his voice sharp as a blade. If you'd known. So if they were someone else's daughters, someone without power or position, this would have been acceptable. The problem isn't that you did this to my children specifically. The problem is that you did this at all. To anyone. Ever. I can change, Adriana pleaded. I can do better. I'll take sensitivity training. Diversity courses. Whatever you want. Please don't fire me. I have a mortgage. I have bills. I've worked here for 12 years. 12 years of complaints. 12 years of second chances. 12 years of victims who didn't have a CEO father to fight for them. Aaron's response was final. MS. Stone, your employment with Skywing Airlines is terminated effective immediately. Security will escort you off the aircraft. The words hung in the air like a sentence handed down from a judge. Terminated. Effective immediately. Adriana's face went through a progression of emotions. Disbelief. Denial. Desperation. Then finally, crushing realization that this was really happening. That she'd destroyed her own career. That 12 years of employment were ending in disgrace in front of a cabin full of witnesses and thousands of people watching online. You can't do this, she said, but her voice had no strength behind it. I have rights. There's a union. There are procedures. Aaron's response came through the speaker system, cold and factual. You violated company policy. You discriminated against passengers based on race. You created a hostile environment. You brought this airline into national disrepute. All of which are grounds for immediate termination under your employment contract, union agreement, and federal law. Security is on their way. I suggest you gather your belongings. The finality in his voice left no room for negotiation or appeal. This wasn't a discussion. It was a done deal. Other flight attendants stood back, creating distance between themselves and Adriana. Not wanting to be associated with her. Not wanting to share in her disgrace. One of them, a younger woman named Claire, stepped forward hesitantly. Sir, this is Claire Martinez, junior flight attendant on this crew. I want to apologize on behalf of those of us who should have intervened sooner. I should have stopped this. I knew it was wrong, but I didn't speak up, and I'm so sorry. Her voice cracked with genuine remorse. Aaron's response was gentler. Ms. Martinez, I appreciate your apology. We'll be reviewing everyone's conduct in this situation, but I recognize that standing up to a senior colleague takes courage. What I need from you and the rest of the crew now is to take care of my daughters. Make sure they feel safe. Make sure they know they're valued and welcome. Can you do that? Claire moved immediately toward the girls, her eyes wet with tears. Yes, sir. Absolutely, sir. Girls, I'm so sorry this happened. Would you like some juice? Or maybe some cookies? Abigail looked at her sisters, then back at Claire. Can we still sit in our seats? Are we allowed to stay? The question broke hearts throughout the cabin. That she even had to ask. That after everything, she still wasn't sure if she belonged there. Claire knelt down and looked the girls in the eyes. These are your seats. You absolutely belong here. You belong anywhere you want to be. And I'm going to personally make sure the rest of this flight is wonderful for you, okay? Security Officer Albert, who'd been standing quietly through all of this, finally moved toward Adriana. Ma'am, I need you to come with me. Adriana looked around wildly, as if searching for someone to intervene. Someone to save her. But there was no one. Even the senior flight attendant who'd initially backed her up had disappeared into the galley, wanting nothing to do with this disaster. Adriana's hands shook as she gathered her things. Her phone. Her crew badge. The small rolling suitcase that flight attendants carry. As Albert guided her toward the aircraft door, Adriana made one last attempt. She turned back toward the girls, tears streaming down her face now. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to hurt you. I was just trying to do my job. But Ada buried her face in Abigail's shoulder, refusing to look at the woman who terrified her. Adelaide stared straight ahead, her jaw set in a way that looked eerily like their father's. And Abigail, the bravest of the three, met Adriana's eyes and spoke with a clarity that silenced everyone. You weren't doing your job. You were being mean because of how we look. That's not a job. That's just being a bad person. Adriana flinched as if she'd been slapped. Opened her mouth to respond. But what could she say? An 8-year-old had just distilled the entire situation down to its essential truth with more honesty than any adult had managed. Albert placed a gentle but firm hand on Adriana's elbow. "Ma'am, it's time to go." As they walked up the jetway, passengers began to applaud. Slowly at first, then building. Not celebrating Adriana's firing exactly, but affirming that justice had been done. That accountability had been enforced. That the right thing had finally happened. Aaron was still on the speaker. "I want to address everyone on this aircraft and everyone watching online. What happened today is unacceptable. But it's also not unique. This kind of discrimination happens constantly. Usually without witnesses. Usually without consequences. Usually the victims are told to be quiet, given a voucher, and sent on their way." His voice intensified. "That ends now. I'm ordering a complete review of every discrimination complaint filed against Skywing employees in the past 5 years. Every single one will be re-investigated. Any employee found to have engaged in racial profiling or discrimination will be terminated. No exceptions. No second chances. This is not who we are, and I will not tolerate it." Amy spoke up from her seat, her phone still recording. "Mr. Mitchell, I'm Amy Washington. I filmed this entire incident and streamed it live. I want you to know that your daughters were incredibly brave. And I hope this is the beginning of real change in the airline industry." Aaron's voice softened. "Ms. Washington, thank you for documenting what happened. Thank you for speaking up when you saw injustice. I hope you'll keep holding us accountable. All of us need people like you to make sure we do better." The pilot Aiden spoke next. "Sir, this is Captain Aiden Rodriguez. I apologize for not intervening sooner. I should have shut this down the moment I saw what was happening." Aaron considered this. "Captain, you did intervene. You stood up to a crew member and protected my daughters when it became clear what was really happening. I'm grateful for that. But you're right that it should have happened sooner. We all need to be faster to recognize discrimination. Faster to stop it. That's a lesson for everyone, including me." Another voice from the cabin. The elderly woman who'd spoken up earlier. "Mr. Mitchell, my name is Patricia Henderson. I've been flying since the 60s. I've seen how far we've come, but moments like this remind me how far we still have to go. Your daughters deserve better. All children deserve better. Thank you for taking a stand." Aaron's response was thick with emotion now. "Ms. Henderson, thank you. And thank you to every passenger who refused to stay silent. You showed my daughters that there are good people in the world. That's what I want them to remember from this day, eventually. Not the hate. But the helpers." Aileen, the gate supervisor, spoke up. "Sir, we're ready to complete boarding and prepare for departure. With your permission, we'll get these girls to Atlanta to be with their family." Aaron exhaled slowly. "Yes. Please. And Aileen? Stay with them. I don't want them alone with anyone they don't feel comfortable with. I'll be on the next flight. I'll be there in 4 hours." Aileen looked at the triplets with compassion. "Girls, I'm going to ride with you to Atlanta. We'll play games, watch movies, whatever you want. You won't be alone." The aircraft door closed. The jetway pulled back. And finally, 90 minutes late, Flight 2847 began to push back from the gate. Inside, 3 8-year-old girls sat in first class, surrounded by passengers who'd fought for them. Protected by a crew who would never let them be hurt again. Heading to their grandmother's funeral with a story they'd carry forever. A story about hatred and hurt, yes. But also about justice. About accountability. About a father who'd moved heaven and earth to protect them. And about strangers who'd become heroes by simply refusing to look away. Aaron Mitchell stood at the gate in Atlanta, every muscle tense, watching his phone as Flight 2847's tracking showed it in the air. His daughters were safe. They were on their way to him. But the fury hadn't subsided. If anything, it had crystallized into something harder. Something more purposeful. He'd spent the 90-minute delay making calls. Pulling files. Assembling evidence. What he'd discovered had made his blood boil. Adriana Stone wasn't an isolated incident. She was a symptom of a much deeper disease. His lawyer Alexander had arrived 30 minutes earlier, carrying a thick folder of documents. "Aaron, I've got everything you asked for. And it's worse than you thought." They'd found a private chat group. 8 flight attendants, including Adriana, sharing messages that would make anyone's stomach turn. Screenshots showed months of racist commentary. "Got another one trying to sneak into first class today. They think they can just buy their way in. Remember when our cabins were classy?" Code words and dog whistles that everyone understood perfectly. HR had been protecting them. Complaints had been filed. Multiple complaints. But they'd been dismissed as misunderstandings or personality conflicts. Marked as resolved after perfunctory diversity training that clearly changed nothing. The victims had been silenced with travel vouchers and apologies that meant nothing. Meanwhile, the employees kept their jobs. Kept their seniority. Kept discriminating. Aaron stared at the evidence spread across an airport table and felt sick. This had been happening under his leadership. On his watch. In his airline. His phone rang. The head of HR, calling from headquarters. Aaron answered with ice in his voice. "Give me one reason why I shouldn't fire you right now." Stammering on the other end. Excuses. Explanations. Aaron cut through them. "You saw these complaints. You saw the patterns. And you did nothing meaningful to stop it. You protected the airline instead of protecting passengers. That's done. You're suspended pending investigation. I want every discrimination complaint from the past 5 years on my desk by tomorrow morning. Every single one." The head of PR called next. "Sir, we need to coordinate our messaging. The story is everywhere. CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, social media. We're trending #1 worldwide. We need a unified response." Aaron's response was sharp. "The response is the truth. We failed. We allowed discrimination to fester. We protected employees who should have been fired. And we're fixing it right now. I'm doing a press conference tonight. No corporate spin. No carefully worded non-apologies. Just honesty." His phone buzzed again. A text from Aileen, the gate supervisor who was flying with his daughters. "Girls are doing better. Watching a movie. Eating snacks. I'm staying right with them." Another text followed with a photo. His 3 daughters, still looking smaller and sadder than they should, but managing small smiles as they shared a bag of cookies. Aaron's eyes stung with tears he refused to let fall. Not yet. Not until he could hold them. Not until he could look them in the eyes and promise that this would never happen again. Alexander reviewed the legal implications. The union is going to fight Adriana's termination. They'll claim you didn't follow procedure. That you need an investigation first. Aaron's laugh was bitter. The investigation is a live stream viewed by millions. The evidence is her own words on camera. Let them fight. I'll explain to an arbitrator exactly why immediate termination was necessary when an employee is caught on video discriminating against children. Alexander nodded slowly. They might sue anyway. Wrongful termination. Defamation. They'll try. Let them, Aaron said flatly. I've got 12 years of complaints. I've got chat logs. I've got witness statements from an entire plane full of passengers. I've got video evidence of her admitting she targeted my daughters because she didn't think black children belonged in first class. If she wants to make this public in a courtroom, I'll bury her under the weight of her own prejudice." He meant every word. This wasn't about protecting the company anymore. This was about making sure it never happened again. News of the termination spread quickly. Adriana Stone wasn't alone. By the time Flight 2847 landed, 7 other employees had been fired. All members of that racist chat group. All with histories of complaints. All finally facing consequences for years of discrimination. The airline's employee union issued a statement condemning the firings as hasty and politically motivated. Aaron issued his own statement in response. These employees were not fired for political reasons. They were fired for racism. If the union wants to defend that, they're welcome to try. Social media exploded with reactions. Some praised Aaron's swift action. Others claimed he was only responding because they were his daughters, that he wouldn't have cared otherwise. Aaron read those criticisms and felt the sting of truth in them. Would he have found out about this pattern without his daughters being the victims? How many other passengers had suffered while he was focused on stock prices and expansion plans? The question haunted him, and he knew it would for a long time. Flight 2847 touched down in Atlanta at 2:15 p.m., 3 hours late. Aaron was waiting at the gate, pacing, unable to stand still. The jetway door opened. Passengers began emerging. And then he saw them. His 3 daughters, still holding hands, walking with Aileen beside them. Their eyes found him immediately, and whatever composure they'd been maintaining shattered. They ran. He ran. They collided in the middle of the gate area, and Aaron dropped to his knees, gathering all 3 girls into his arms. They cried. All 4 of them. Great heaving sobs that released hours of fear and pain and confusion. Other passengers walked around them, giving them space, giving them this moment. Aaron held his daughters like he'd never let go. Whispered into their hair. "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry I wasn't there. I'm so sorry that happened to you. You're safe now. Daddy's got you. I've got you." Ada's voice was muffled against his shoulder. "Are we in trouble?" The question destroyed him all over again. "No, baby. No. You're not in trouble. You'll never be in trouble for this." Abigail pulled back enough to look at her father's face. "Did you fire that lady?" Aaron nodded. "I did. She can't hurt anyone else now." Adelaide spoke quietly. "Good. She was mean. She made us feel bad for no reason." Aaron touched each of their faces, memorizing this moment. "You girls were so brave. You stood up for yourselves. You told the truth. I'm proud of you. But you shouldn't have had to be that brave. You shouldn't have had to defend yourselves for existing." They stayed there for long minutes, just holding each other. Finally, Aileen gently touched Aaron's shoulder. "Sir, there are reporters gathering outside. You might want to use the private exit." Aaron looked up at her. "Thank you for taking care of them. For flying with them. I won't forget it." Eileen's eyes were red. "Those girls are special. What they went through today, what they handled with such grace, it reminded me why I do this job. To make travel better. To make people feel safe. I'm sorry we failed them." Aaron stood, keeping his daughters close. "Let's go to Grandma's house. That's why we came." But Abigail tugged his hand. "Daddy, can we go talk to those reporters? We want to tell them what happened. We want other kids to know they don't have to be scared to speak up." Aaron looked down at his 8-year-old daughter, this fierce little person who'd been terrorized just hours ago and was already thinking about helping others. Pride swelled in his chest even through the pain. "Are you sure? You don't have to." Ada nodded. We want to. So it doesn't happen to other kids. Adelaide added quietly. And so the lady knows she was wrong. Not just fired wrong. But really wrong. Aaron considered this. Looked at Alexander, who nodded slowly. If they want to do it, let them. Their voices matter more than ours right now. So Aaron led his daughters toward the main terminal, toward the cluster of cameras and reporters who'd been tracking the story all day. Toward a moment that would define not just this day, but the days and months to come. The reporters surged forward when they appeared. Aaron held up a hand. My daughters have something they want to say. Please be respectful. He lifted Abigail up so she could reach the microphones, supporting her with one arm while Ada and Adelaide stood pressed against his sides. Abigail looked at the cameras with those serious 8-year-old eyes and spoke with a clarity that would be replayed millions of times in the hours that followed. My name is Abigail Mitchell. That lady on the plane was mean to me and my sisters because we're black. She said we didn't belong in first class. But we did belong there. Everyone belongs there if they have a ticket. Ada spoke next, her voice small but determined. She made us cry. She scared us. But we told the truth, and people helped us. Adelaide finished the thought. Our daddy always says to stand up for what's right even when it's hard. Today was really hard. But we stood up. And maybe other kids can stand up too. The reporters started shouting questions, but Aaron shook his head. That's all for today. My daughters have been through enough. I'll be giving a full press conference tomorrow. He carried them toward the exit, leaving the chaos behind. In the car on the way to their grandmother's house, the girls were quiet. Processing. Aaron wanted to fill the silence with reassurances, but he knew they needed time. Finally, Abigail spoke. Daddy, will things be different now? Will people be nicer? Aaron wished he could promise her yes. Wished he could guarantee that this would fix everything. But he'd learned today that problems don't disappear just because you want them to. I don't know, baby girl. I hope so. But there are still people in the world who judge others by their skin color. Who think some people are better than others. What I can promise is that we'll keep fighting. We'll keep speaking up. And slowly, things will get better. How slowly? Ada asked. Aaron thought about the 5 years of complaints he'd reviewed. About the systemic problems that ran deeper than one flight attendant. About the long road ahead. Probably slower than we'd like. But faster than if we stayed silent. What you girls did today, speaking up even when you were scared, that's how change happens. One brave voice at a time. They rode in silence for a while longer, then Adelaide asked the question that had probably been on all their minds. Did Grandma know what happened? Aaron nodded. She watched the live stream. She called me crying. She wants to hug you all and never let go. And when they arrived at his mother's house, that's exactly what happened. Grandmother Mitchell, still grieving the loss of her own mother, gathered her granddaughters into her arms and held them while they told her everything. Every detail. Every hurt. And she listened and cried and told them they were brave and beautiful and perfect exactly as they were. That night, the family gathered not just to mourn a death, but to celebrate the courage of 3 little girls who'd stood up against hatred and won. At least this battle. There would be more to come. The press conference Aaron held the day after the incident was viewed by over 10 million people. He stood at a podium with his daughters beside him, and he told the unvarnished truth. We failed. I failed. As the CEO of this company, the buck stops with me. We had a systemic problem with racial discrimination, and we did not address it properly. That changes today. He'd announced a complete overhaul of the airline's diversity and inclusion programs. Mandatory anti-bias training for every employee. A zero-tolerance policy for discrimination. An independent review board to handle complaints. Real consequences. Real accountability. The airline stock had initially dropped 15%. Investors panicked about lawsuits and reputation damage. But then something unexpected happened. Within 2 weeks, the stock had recovered and climbed higher than before. Customers praised the swift action. Praised the transparency. Praised a CEO who'd put people over profits. Bookings actually increased as passengers specifically chose Skywing because of how the situation had been handled. It turned out that doing the right thing was also good business. Who knew? Adriana Stone's story took a darker turn. She'd hired a lawyer and attempted to sue for wrongful termination. The case was thrown out within a month. Video evidence, chat logs, testimony from dozens of passengers and crew members, all painted a picture too clear to deny. Her lawsuit for defamation met the same fate. The judge's ruling was scathing. The plaintiff seeks damages for harm to her reputation, but the evidence shows she harmed her own reputation through her documented pattern of discriminatory behavior. This court will not reward that. No other airline would hire her. The video had made her infamous. A cautionary tale shared in HR departments across the country. She'd lost her house to foreclosure. Had to move in with her younger sister in a small town in Indiana. She worked retail now at a discount store, earning minimum wage. Every few weeks, someone would recognize her. Point. Whisper. She'd become the face of airline racism. A permanent example of how hatred destroys the hater just as much as the hated. Her entire life had imploded because she couldn't see 3 little girls as human beings worthy of dignity. The triplets had struggled more than Aaron had initially realized. Ada had nightmares for a month, waking up crying about being thrown off planes. Adelaide became quieter, more watchful, slower to trust strangers. And Abigail, his brave fierce daughter, had channeled her pain into action. She'd started a blog called First Class Kids, where she wrote about her experience and invited other children to share their stories of discrimination. At 8 years old, she was already an advocate. Already changing conversations. Already refusing to let what happened to her be meaningless. They'd flown several times since that day. Aaron made sure to be with them, refusing to let fear steal their confidence. The first time back on a plane had been hard. The girls had been tense. Watchful. Waiting for someone to question their right to be there. But the crew had been wonderful. Patient. Kind. They'd made a point of welcoming the girls by name, making them feel valued. Slowly, flight by flight, the girls were healing. Learning to trust again. Learning that one person's hatred didn't define everyone. Then, 3 months after the incident, something unexpected arrived. A letter. Addressed to Aaron Mitchell at the airline headquarters, but marked personal, for the Mitchell family. Aaron had opened it carefully, suspicious of what it might contain. Hate mail had been common in the first few weeks. Death threats from people who thought he'd gone too far, that he should have protected his employee. He'd turned all of those over to security and tried not to let his daughters know they existed. But this letter was different. It was from Adriana Stone. 5 handwritten pages. Aaron had almost thrown it away without reading it, but something made him pause. He'd sat down in his office, door closed, and read. The letter didn't start with an apology. It started with a confession. I want to tell you about the house I grew up in. About parents who taught me that people who looked different were dangerous. That they were less than. That our kind and their kind should stay separate. She wrote about childhood lessons taught through casual slurs and fearful warnings. About never questioning those lessons because everyone she knew believed the same things. About carrying those beliefs into adulthood like inherited china, precious and unexamined. I never thought I was racist, she wrote. I thought I was just being practical. Just being careful. Just protecting standards. I didn't see what I was really doing until I'd lost everything. The letter continued. When I saw 3 black children in first class, I didn't see children. I saw a challenge to the order I believed in. A disruption of how things should be. And I acted to restore what I thought was right. I genuinely believed I was doing my job. That should terrify you as much as it now terrifies me. She described losing her career. Her house. Her sense of self. But the worst part wasn't the material loss. It was watching that video afterward. Really watching it. Seeing your daughter's faces. Seeing the fear I put there. Hearing the crying I caused. Understanding that I'd terrorized children for no reason except the color of their skin. I wish I could say I'm sorry and that would fix it, Adriana wrote. But I know it won't. Your daughters will carry what I did to them forever. That scar is permanent, and I put it there. All I can say is that I'm learning. Too late for my career. Too late to undo the harm. Too late for it to matter to you or your family. But maybe not too late to stop me from raising children who think like I used to think. Maybe not too late for me to become someone different than who I was. The letter ended with something that wasn't quite an apology. More like a eulogy for who she used to be. I destroyed my own life because I couldn't see your daughter's humanity. Because I was taught not to see it and never questioned those lessons. I hope they heal. I hope they fly first class 1,000 times and never think twice about whether they belong there. Because they do. They always did. And I was wrong. Completely, utterly, unforgivably wrong. Aaron had sat with that letter for a long time. Unsure what to do with it. Finally, he'd taken it home and shown it to the girls. They'd read it silently, passing pages between them. When they finished, no one spoke for a while. Then Abigail, always the first to find words, asked the question that had no easy answer. Can people really change, Daddy? Aaron had considered this carefully. I don't know, baby girl. Maybe. Sometimes. But change doesn't erase harm. And people who want forgiveness after they've been caught aren't the same as people who do right when no one's watching. Ada had the next question. Do you think she means it? Aaron had looked at his daughter's serious face. I think she means it right now. Whether she'll still mean it in a year or 5 years or 20 years, I can't say. People are complicated. Sometimes they surprise you. Adelaide, who'd been quiet through the whole conversation, finally spoke. I hope she changes. Not for us. For the next kids. So she doesn't hurt them too. The wisdom in that statement had floored Aaron. His 8-year-old daughter, who'd been victimized by this woman, hoping that woman would grow. Not for revenge. Not for vindication. But so other children would be spared. That was grace he wasn't sure he could offer. But his daughters, somehow, could. He'd filed the letter away, unsure if he'd ever respond. Unsure what response would even be appropriate. Some hurts don't heal with apologies. Some changes come too late to matter to the people who were harmed. But maybe, just maybe, they matter to the next people. The ones who won't be hurt because someone finally learned. Then came the news that transformed the entire situation into something larger. 6 months after the incident, Aaron received notification from the Federal Aviation Administration and the Department of Transportation. They were launching a comprehensive investigation into discrimination practices across all major U.S. airlines. The catalyst? What had happened to his daughters? The publicity. The video evidence. The systemic problems uncovered at Skywing had prompted federal regulators to ask a bigger question: if one airline had these issues, what about the others? The investigation uncovered dozens of similar cases. Hundreds, actually. Passengers removed from planes for suspicious behavior that turned out to be existing while Black or Muslim or Hispanic. Families forced to prove their tickets multiple times. People denied service or moved to different seats because other passengers were uncomfortable. Pattern after pattern of discrimination that had been dismissed, swept aside, explained away. All of it documented now. All of it finally facing scrutiny. New federal regulations were being drafted. Mandatory bias training for all airline employees, administered by independent third parties. Stricter reporting requirements for discrimination complaints. Federal oversight of airline diversity initiatives. Passenger protections that couldn't be waived by corporate policies. What had happened to 3 8-year-old girls on Flight 2847 was changing an entire industry. Creating safeguards that would protect millions of travelers going forward. Aaron was invited to testify before Congress about the incident and the changes Skywing had implemented. He brought his daughters with him. They sat in the gallery while he spoke about systemic discrimination, about the failure of self-regulation, about the need for accountability. And when he finished, Abigail was invited to speak. 8 years old and addressing the United States Congress. She'd stood at the microphone, barely tall enough to reach it even with a step stool, and she told her story one more time. But this time, she ended with a challenge. Grown-ups are supposed to protect kids, she'd said, her voice clear in the ornate chamber. But sometimes grown-ups are the ones being mean. So we need rules that make them be nice. Rules that say you can't treat people bad because of how they look. And if you do, you lose your job. That's fair. The room had erupted in applause. The video of her testimony went viral. 8 years old and schooling Congress on civil rights. Her blog grew to 50,000 followers. Other children shared their stories. Adults shared experiences they'd never spoken about before. A movement was building. Now, 6 months after that terrible day in Dallas, the Mitchell family was flying again. Special invited guests to an event at the National Civil Rights Museum. They boarded the aircraft, a different airline this time, and walked to their first-class seats. The flight attendant approached with genuine warmth. "Welcome aboard, ladies. We're honored to have you flying with us today." She treated them like royalty. Brought them extra snacks. Checked on them frequently. Made sure they knew they were valued. Abigail caught her father's eye and smiled. A real smile this time. Not haunted by what had happened. Just a girl enjoying a flight. Ada was already absorbed in a movie. Adelaide had her nose in a book. They looked comfortable. They looked like they belonged. Because they did. They always had. As the plane took off, Abigail looked out the window at the clouds streaming past. Thought about everything that had happened. Everything that had changed. Everything still to come. She thought about the woman who'd hurt them and wondered if she really was different now. Thought about the other kids who wouldn't be hurt because of new rules and new training. Thought about her grandmother, who'd passed away 2 months ago after getting to see her granddaughters celebrated as heroes. Grandma would have been proud. Would have told them to keep fighting. Keep speaking up. Keep making the world better. The plane climbed through 35,000 feet. First class. Where 3 black girls belonged just as much as anyone else. Where they could sit without fear. Without suspicion. Without having to prove they deserved to be there. Abigail leaned her head against the window and felt something release in her chest. Not forgetting. She'd never forget. But maybe, finally, beginning to heal. The sky stretched endless and blue ahead of them, full of possibility. Full of promise. Full of a future they'd helped create just by refusing to accept that they were anything less than worthy of dignity and respect. So what do you think about this story? Drop a comment below and let me know your thoughts. Do you believe companies should fire employees immediately when discrimination is caught on camera, or should there be an investigation first? Have you or someone you know ever experienced discrimination while traveling? Share your story. Your voice matters. And if you believe stories like this need to be heard, hit that like button right now. Subscribe to this channel because we're going to keep sharing stories about people standing up for what's right, fighting against injustice, and refusing to stay silent. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Together, we can create a world where every child, regardless of their skin color, feels safe and valued. Thank you for watching. Thank you for caring. And remember, change happens when good people refuse to look away. Until next time, take care of each other out there. This story reveals uncomfortable truths about discrimination that still permeate our institutions. First, bias often hides behind protocol and professionalism, making it harder to identify and challenge. Adriana Stone believed she was following proper procedures, but her selective enforcement exposed her prejudice. Second, silence enables injustice. The passengers who spoke up, who filmed, who refused to look away, transformed a private humiliation into public accountability. Their courage mattered as much as the CEO's power. Third, systemic problems require systemic solutions. Firing one employee wasn't enough. Real change demanded examining complaints that had been dismissed, patterns that had been ignored, and structures that protected discriminators instead of victims. Fourth, children's voices carry profound moral authority. Abigail, Ada, and Adelaide didn't just survive their ordeal, they became advocates for others facing similar injustice. Their willingness to speak publicly accelerated change in ways adult testimony might not have. Finally, accountability must be swift and transparent. Aaron Mitchell's immediate action sent a clear message that discrimination would not be tolerated, investigated away, or quietly settled. His refusal to protect the company's image over his daughter's dignity established a new standard. These lessons extend beyond airlines to every institution where power imbalances and prejudice intersect. Change requires courage, transparency, and the willingness to face uncomfortable truths about ourselves and our organizations. What would you have done if you witnessed this happening? Would you have spoken up like those brave passengers, or would fear of confrontation have kept you silent? Drop a comment below and share your thoughts honestly. Have you or someone you love ever experienced discrimination that others ignored? Tell your story in the comments because your experience matters and might help someone else feel less alone. If this story moved you, if it made you angry or inspired or hopeful, hit that like button right now. Subscribe to this channel so you never miss stories about people standing up against injustice and fighting for dignity. Share this video with your friends, your family, your coworkers. Share it with anyone who needs to understand that silence in the face of discrimination makes us complicit. Thank you for watching. Thank you for caring enough to listen to these girls' story. Thank you for being the kind of person who believes children deserve to be treated with respect regardless of their skin color. May we all find the courage to speak up when we witness injustice. May we all do better. Take care of each other out there, and remember that change starts with us.